For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble, and I appreciate your attention over the holiday season. I know everybody is kind of busy and rushing around, but I'm glad that you found 30 minutes to waste with us. I don't know. I always think it's a good time. You're not going to learn anything on this show. Don't expect, if this is your first time tuning in, don't expect any sort of big life lessons or to take away anything. I'm just here to talk your ear off. That's kind of what my deal is. My name is Jeremy Bradley, and again, happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Depending on what you celebrate, I hope you have a good holiday. Is that maybe just the kind of... I don't care what you celebrate, just have a good time. Is that rude? Is that disrespectful? I don't know. We have this discussion every year now because I'm not the first person to say that, the world is too politically correct. We've all heard somebody say that, or we believe it ourselves. And here's the deal. I'm not Jewish, but if somebody says Happy Hanukkah to me, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's wonderful. The sentiment is, I'm wishing you well. I'm saying that I want you to have a good day, a good time, a good 8 days, whatever you're celebrating. And so, yeah, it would be like if somebody comes up and says happy birthday to you. Do you get offended that it's not your birthday? I don't celebrate my birthday. Like, lighten up, people. Really, there are bigger things to worry about in the world than somebody just not getting your holiday correct. And really, at the same time, one, you can't assume that people celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, any other holiday, Easter, Passover, whatever it might be. But I think for some reason it's just those were general holidays. I'm not Irish. I don't necessarily celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but whatever. Okay, great. It's a day on the calendar. I'm happy that people in Ireland or in pubs are celebrating. It's not my thing, but hey, great. We'll have at her. So anyway, whatever. Happy holidays, okay? Deal with it. And then, of course, there's the controversy about the songs. Now, here's the deal. Santa Baby. Which one should we start with? There's Santa Baby, and then, the other one, right? Baby, It's Cold Outside? Okay. Let me start actually with Baby, It's Cold Outside. John Legend just recently remade the song, and there were some lyric changes to it. Sharon Osbourne, Sharon, right? Ozzy's wife. Sharon Osbourne voiced her opinion on The Talk, saying that that's ridiculous, that it's a classic song. Hey, John, how could you do such a thing? If this was your song and somebody went and changed all the words to it, not all the words, some of the words to it, you'd be pissed off because as an artist, that's your work, that's something you did, like, how dare you, kind of a thing. I get that. So, the story, if you haven't already heard, the story is that some radio stations banned the song. Now, as far as I know, none of the radio stations that I appear on have banned the song because I think that we've actually played it on our show, and they haven't censored it. And again, there's far worse stuff that you're hearing in music these days. But some radio stations banned it because it seems like it's a man taking advantage of a woman, right? It's a flirty song from, I think it was the 1930s or 40s, but nowadays somehow we've taken a step backwards when it comes to our tolerance of things. And so you think about something like that where, it's the guy taking advantage. He's not letting her leave. He's giving her another drink. He's telling her to have another drink, booze it up so he can take advantage of her. That's sort of the sentiment that people are saying. Now, let's skip over to that song Santa Baby, which is basically a whore wanting to get free stuff from a married man. Right? Think about how flirty that song is, the original version of it. It's a flirty, cutesy, hey, Santa Baby, hurry down the chimney tonight. Well, you're saying that to Santa Claus, who, from what I understand, is married, it's Mrs. Claus, right? Now, I haven't looked for rings. I don't know, but he wears gloves, so maybe he's wearing a ring underneath that. Nevertheless, that's a cutesy, flirty song. Well, here's the deal, though. She's a homewrecker then. She's a whore. She's a homewrecker. She's busting up the marriage. And you know what? You can think that I'm being sarcastic or making a joke, but how can you not draw that parallel if a song about a guy wanting her to stick around and have another drink, well, here you are trying to be a materialistic bitch and get stuff from a married guy. See, at the top of the show, I told you you're not going to learn anything today. Maybe I lied. Maybe you will. It'll open your eyes. And really, like I said, I don't understand the whole outrage culture that we live in, cancel culture they call it. It takes a lot to offend me, and I don't even know that I'm necessarily offended by anything. I mean, you know, when I was growing up as a kid, I'm 37 years old. When I was growing up as a kid, you teased the other kids. You made jokes. You did things like that. I'm not saying that it was right. We made fun of the overweight. I mean, you'd call them the fat kids. We made fun of the overweight kids. But it wasn't that we were making fun of them to beat them down and have them go home crying and suicidal. And again, I'm not making a joke. We didn't do that. That wasn't the intent. I'm not justifying the teasing that we did. It certainly wasn't considered bullying, but everybody was made fun of. I had crooked teeth, so I was made fun of for that. There were some girls that were overweight, and okay, they were made fun of. You know, you had guys that were really short, and there were girls that were taller than them, so the short guys were made fun of. It was a different kind of teasing, if that makes sense. But, you know, nowadays things are just overly... It's just too much, the outrage. You know, case in point, we're going to take a break. Okay. I wasn't supposed to go on this rant. I tend to do that. I launch into what we were supposed to talk about on the show right at the beginning. Speaking of taking things out of hand, getting things out of hand on social media, I've got a story about that and how somebody sort of came at me, and I kind of had the final word on it. That story is coming up, and also celebrities and the whole impeachment thing. I'm not a politics talker, but it crosses over into entertainment when the celebs chime in. So those two stories are coming up right here on the Scribble.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on the Scribble. So just moments ago, I told you that social media outrage it's a little bit extreme. I think that nowadays people will comment and post something just to get the likes, the audience. They want to go viral, whether that's with a video or just a post online. People do that. And take it from me, you know, I've been a newspaper columnist for 14 years, and that's my job, is to poke at people and get them riled up. I know, you know, you wanted to elicit letters to the editor. I know our younger listeners are like, letters to the editor? What's that? You used to actually write a letter and mail it to the newspaper if you agreed or disagreed with a columnist. Opinion, I guess these days you'd call them a blogger, really. And then you would fax them, and then you would email them, and then I guess you would DM them, and then later you would just sort of cancel your newspaper subscription, since that's what everybody does nowadays. I shouldn't laugh about that. I'm paid very well by newspapers. I'm not hurt, as of yet anyway, by the newspaper industry going, you know, digital and by the wayside, perhaps. Anyhow, so on Twitter, people have this outrage, this manufactured outrage, I like to say. And during a football game, Sarah Palin had you cheered on a team, whatever the team was. I'm not a football fan, so I don't know, but she clearly made a cheering remark to this team that she was a fan of. I very quickly then wrote back something to the effect of, well, I know who I'm not rooting for now. And somebody who just took that literally or too seriously fired back at me. And again, for me, it was sarcastic. It was just, just in jest, really. I'm Canadian, so I don't give two shits about American politics either way, right? Unless it's affecting me or the people I love. Anyway, so I made a comment about Sarah Palin. This woman fires back, well, we all have our favorites and blah, 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 blah. And I bet you don't even watch football anyway. So I replied back with a picture of me at an NFL game on the sidelines wearing my little NFL penny because I was a member of the media and I was right on the sidelines by the team. And so I said, no, I don't unless I'm covering the game. And I said, and by the way, that was a sarcastic comment. Not everything needs to be a fight. And I think maybe you get that from your president. And she actually, I was surprised by this because, again, I was expecting a battle. She actually wrote back and said, you know, you're right. And I thought, holy crap, if I just changed one person's attitude on Twitter, who, again, didn't take a moment to have my comment. She didn't digest my comment, right? It was just, oh, I read that. This is my first thought, right? And I'm gonna tell off this guy. Well, you just look like the loose cannon. I don't. Maybe, you know, and if you don't follow my Twitter account, then you don't know about my sarcasm and my personality, or if you don't listen to me on the radio then or the podcast, then you don't know that. But again, do your research before you go and fire off something like that, right? And I also love to, when I would make a joke about President Trump, that this was shortly after the election, people would just rip me to shreds and say, oh, you're just a bitter Hillary supporter. And I would go and say, like, look at my profile. I'm Canadian. Like, that's not. But again, you're just wanting to come out swinging at people and beat them down because they have a different opinion or different viewpoint than you. And so, again, if I was able to make a difference in one person's life and make her see the light, I should actually go back and see if she makes a habit of still doing, just still taking a swipe at people. I hope not. But it was refreshing. I actually felt good that, like, here's somebody who kind of, like, took that step back and was thinking, okay, yeah, maybe, yeah, I should chill out a little bit. So, anyway, now on to President Trump. I mentioned I'm not a political commentator. That's not my bag. That's not my thing. But nowadays, politics bleeds over into entertainment, into the entertainment world. And so President Trump, I know Ms. Donald Trump, when he was doing Celebrity Apprentice, he was on the radio with me because we would cover Celebrity Apprentice. I would go to New York City and report live from the red carpet on our radio shows. And so Trump has been on, so has Don Jr. I don't know that Ivanka has, and I don't think that Eric. I think they were still keeping Eric in the cage at that point earlier on. I'm just kidding. And anyway, so the impeachment happened earlier in the week, right? There was that historic vote. Third president, you know the story. I'm not breaking any news here, but it's interesting how the celebrity world is almost kind of what we go to now. Now, I want your opinion on this to see if you agree. Cable news networks and shows, primetime shows, all have their commentators. They've all got their political experts. This one used to work for Reagan. This one used to be the press secretary for Obama. This one used to do whatever for Bush. This one used to... Okay, right? Everybody's an expert. What I find fascinating, especially about this presidency, this administration, is that celebrities are more outspoken than anything else. Let's rewind a few years to when Obama was president. Admittedly, he didn't have scandals as much as this president did or does. And there wasn't much to criticize or complain about. You had the political commentators that did that, but celebrities were largely quiet, right? Even when Bush, 9/11 happened, I guess social media wasn't as prevalent in people's lives as it is today, so let's take that into consideration. But yes, people disagreed with Bush, and they were outspoken. You had your usuals, right? Your Jane Fonda, your people who've been around for a while. But the celebrity world, on the night of the impeachment, I host a daily entertainment headline show called Entertainment Wrap Up, and I'll just read you some of the tweets that we reported on. We actually reported it this weekend. Haha, there you are. There, I just gave away how we do our radio show. Our weekend entertainment show that's on December 21st is taped on Thursday. So I already know what's making headlines on the weekend. And so anyway, I'm actually scooping our entertainment show. I'm telling you something before it's actually aired. Let me read you some of the tweets from the celebrities. Alyssa Milano. You know that she was there with the hearing for that Brett Kavanaugh hearing for the judge, right? Supreme Court. Alyssa Milano tweeted, "I expected this moment, but I expected to be more joyful. Maybe jump up and do a happy dance, maybe, but I'm just sad and heartbroken. What he's left behind can't be erased with this vote. The bigotry and xenophobia he's emboldened, the lies it will take generations to recover. Just to be clear, she's talking about Trump and not Kavanaugh. I didn't want to confuse you there. Kirstie Alley has said, dangerous precedent, gonna cause a major tit-for-tat retaliation now for whomever is in power. Fasten your seatbelts. It's gonna be a bumpy decade. Amber Tamblyn simply wrote in all caps, Happy Holidays, Twitter. D.L. Hewley tweeted, he wanted to make history. He did. First president ever to be impeached in his first term. Rosie O'Donnell said, done. Amen. God bless America. Kathy Griffin posted a pic of Nancy Pelosi and wrote, I'm with her. So this is interesting again because the celebrities are getting on their soapbox and they're, clearly rejoicing and happy that Trump was impeached. And my thought, so now I'm going to segue sort of into another story here. My thought is, again, as a Canadian, impeachment doesn't really matter. Now, when Clinton was being impeached, I was admittedly a teenager and didn't quite understand the oral sex thing. Like, I think maybe I found it titillating because, when you're a teenager with a constant boner, anything will get you off. But I didn't quite understand what it was. I knew the word impeachment. I knew that Bill Clinton had done something wrong. And impeachment, and it's funny too, because when you look at these surveys and these stats, present day, you see that a lot of Americans say, well, I thought impeachment means that he's losing his job. And there's been many debates. I watch The View and I watch Morning Joe. I do see the panel discussions that a lot of people just assume that impeachment means you're losing your job. Well, if it doesn't, then what really is the point? Because here's the deal. If you don't care what people think about you and you're willing to make up facts, lies, history, whatever it is, you don't care what people say about you. You don't care about your reputation. You don't care about basically the public perception of you. What does it matter then if you're the third president to be impeached? Now, yes, Trump is an egomaniac, as they say, right? He has to have his name on everything. He's got to have good press, and if you disagree with him, then it's fake news and it's lies. But somebody like that, he's never going to accept it anyway, right? He's just going to throw, as we've seen in the past couple of days, every excuse to say that it's illegal, whatever. So why bother? Why go through, maybe I guess you go through the motions because that's what's in the Constitution and how things have to play out or should play out in a democracy and things like that. But how much time is this wasting? How much money is it wasting? How many major issues are not being focused on because this is happening? Now, I mean, of course, it's not my country, so who am I to say what they should be doing? But I would almost just want to go and say, get to work and do other things. Keep focusing on my community first off. If you're my representative and you're spending all this time in Washington all about the impeachment, well, I hope you're still answering emails from people in the neighborhood and you're getting back to them. I mean, that's not cool if you're not, right? Then you're really not doing your job at that point. So anyway, I think it's interesting that there's this whole push for impeachment. And again, I'm not taking a side either way. He's not my president, and don't say, well, he's everybody's president. No, I'm Canadian again. So I think that maybe now that people are starting to realize that impeachment doesn't mean removed from office, doesn't mean fired from the job, doesn't mean locked up in jail, that what really was the point of it? All these victory dances that people were doing, well, he's still going to be your president for the rest of the term. And it's true, I do understand that there are ways, depending on the next vote and when the trial happens, that he theoretically could be removed from office. I get that that's part of the process as well. But when it's already forecast that that's not going to happen, again, why go through it just for the sake of going through the motions, right? I mean, it's the same thing when they were debating these things. And again, 6 hours of a debate, when you're really just stalling or throwing in roadblocks to impede the process, well, again, why bother? And again, you can make that argument of go and say, well, if you just give up, well, that's not very optimistic or positive, right? If you don't believe in change, it's like saying, well, I don't vote because they're all just crooks and criminals anyway. Well, okay, sure. But then there's that whole, well, do I not vote? Do I vote for the least worst person? Do I vote for the person, it's kind of, is it a throwaway vote at that point? All of these things I've just put out to you for the last 11 and a half minutes, I really would love to know your thoughts. You can email me live@jbonair.com. That's live@jbonair.com. Again, if you're a Trump supporter, Hillary, that's not the purpose of this dialogue. I don't want to say conversation because nobody's talking, it's just me. But what are your thoughts on all of these things that I've just laid out there for you? Live@jbonair.com. live at jbonair.com. We're back with more on the Scribble right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on the Scribble. I've got a bunch to unpack just in the last few moments here. That Mexico commercial, I'll talk about that in a second, but just as we were about to come back, I grabbed my water bottle and I twisted off the cap and I went and tilted my head back to drink, and my neck cracked, like popped, like 3 times, and I was like, at first I thought it was the water bottle, and then I'm like, I think that was my neck. That was my neck, everybody. That was my neck. And it's happened one time before when we were doing the radio show, or was it the I don't remember. I was on the air anyway, and I was talking, and then I turned my head, and you hear it, and I'm like, there you go, you guys, you just heard that crack? That was my neck, and I'm going to go to the hospital, I think is what I said. An old moment there for me. Now, speaking of Mexico, you just heard that commercial for our previous Mexico coverage. 3 times a year on our syndicated radio shows, we do travel tourism programming, and we go somewhere for spring break, summer vacation, and Christmas holidays. Well, this year we did Puerto Vallarta, or Puerto Vallarta, or Puerto Vallarta, however you want to say it. We went to PV. Is that better? And we did that for the radio shows, and we often like to bring you those segments here on the podcast in case you didn't hear them on the radio and you subscribe to the podcast. I don't want you to miss out on the fun of a travel destination, so it was kind of cool to go back to a hotspot destination. We've been to PV several times before, and on this go-round, we toured the Malecon, which again is iconic in PV along the waterfront. The statues, the sculptures, the paintings, the artwork. And then we did an art tour where I did some crafting. I'll talk about that on the show as well. And we went golfing. We went golfing for my birthday, and so I've never golfed before. And to wake up at 6 in the morning, to be told you're waking up at 6 a.m. on your birthday, and 2, you're going golfing. I'm not a morning person and I'm not a golfer, so it could go either way. But they told me I could drink. So anyway, I'll tell you those stories. You're going to hear the segments coming up next week on the podcast. We are on autopilot, as they say. I'm off for Christmas, so it's not like we're live and we're not, I'm not going to lie to you. I'll lie to you on the radio shows, but I won't lie to you on the podcast. No, it's December 20th here, so the December 27th episode of the podcast is pre-recorded, and it's a clip show, basically. If you remember sitcoms from back in the day, a clip show. I always thought that was when they ran out of story ideas, and they just wanted to do a freebie kind of episode where they'll just go and take clips from recent episodes and compile it. Right, they had the flashback of the How We Met episode, or things like that. Yeah, so it's a clip show, but you haven't heard these clips on the podcast or on the radio show. So that's coming up next week when we were in Puerto Vallarta. Kind of weird. It was airing on the radio this week, and then you're hearing it on the podcast next week. But it was recorded live in Mexico. We were live. We were. And yeah, pretty crazy to have crocodiles or alligators, whatever it was, on the golf course. A little bit strange. So anyway, the holidays are coming. If not, depending on when you're listening to this, it could be Christmas Day, and it could be also the start of Hanukkah. I don't know. Nevertheless, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. I don't want to get into that fist fight about what you celebrate, as I've already said, but do you go all out when it comes to Christmas shopping? And secondly, do you do your Christmas shopping online? Obviously, that seems to be the easy way to go these days, right? Everybody likes doing that, but there's something to me that just doesn't feel very personal about it. This is where I'm getting old school. I absolutely hate shopping, don't get me wrong. I hate shopping, so you'd think that online shopping would be ideal to me. You'd think that would be appealing. It is not. And for some reason, I can't bring myself to do Christmas shopping on the internet. I don't know. And the other question that I have this time of year is, how early do you put up your Christmas tree and how late do you take it down? So here's my email address. Again, live@jbonair.com. Live@jbonair.com. When do you put up your Christmas tree? My mom told me that she just put hers up. My parents just put theirs up on last Friday. They put it up last Friday, so about not quite 2 weeks before Christmas. A little less than 2 weeks before Christmas. I'm going to be honest with you. Today is December 20th. My tree is still not up yet. Now, at this point, this is where it's a crapshoot. It's a toss-up. Because putting it up and setting up the decorations, putting up the lights, all that kind of stuff is fun when you're doing it. You know what happens next, right? You've got to take it down. There was one year that I kept the tree and all the decorations up until February. I did. Not an exaggeration. But it always seems like it takes a lot longer to take it all down. I should time it this year. But as you're approaching December 20th, 21st, 22nd, right, we're heading into a weekend, so that's a good opportunity to do the decorations. Is it maybe just the point where you go and say, it's too late in the season already? You know, Christmas is a few days away. Why bother? I'm just going to take it down in a week anyway. Now, my mom's rule is that it comes down on New Year's Day. Despite us being Ukrainian and Ukrainian Christmas happening right after the New Year, she doesn't keep it up for that. That's her rule always, is January 1st the tree comes down. So, I'm asking you that question. How soon do you put yours up, and how quickly do you take it down? Live@jbonair.com. Live@jbonair.com.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on The Scribble. In our final remaining moments, we've got about 2 minutes before we've got to go. Again, I want to wish you Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, whatever it is that you celebrate. Have a good time. Again, do it safely, do it responsibly. Don't drink and drive, right? You've got to be mindful of other people out on the roads, and their safety is no less important than yours is, in all honesty. So don't be a hero. I know that marijuana is now legal in many places as well. Still not an excuse to overdo it or act irresponsibly. So that's my little public service announcement for you. I was supposed to talk about the top celebrity stories and news stories of the year today, but I do that every day. And so again, when it comes to the holidays, don't you just kind of want to kick off your shoes? I just want to lay on the couch, drink eggnog, eat sugar cookies, and just not do the usual stuff. And so my job every day of the year, almost every day of the year, not quite every day of the year, but my job day in and day out, that's a better way of saying it, my job is to talk about celebrities and the news. I don't need to recap it. And here's the deal. And quite honestly, I don't even remember the top story. I don't remember the big stories of the year. Clearly, impeachment would be one of them. But yeah, when it comes to celebrity breakups or babies or scandals or whatever, I go day by day. I couldn't even tell you what the biggest news story was last month. That's how so far removed and unattached I am from my job sometimes. But anyway, all right, we got about 30 seconds. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. I do appreciate your feedback whenever you send it in, whether it's good or bad, as long as you're reasonable. live@jbonair.com is the email address. live@jbonair.com. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat